Hello, I'm Steph Hattersley, Group Chief of Staff at the Skipton Group.
And I'm Polly Ogden-Duffy, MD at John D. Wood & Company, part of the exec team for the estate agency part of Skipton.
And welcome to our brand new podcast.
The idea for this podcast came about as we were discussing some of our career-defining moments. Some may say catastrophes.
In this series, we're going to chat to some of our colleagues about their career stories.
But first, we thought we'd share a little bit more about ourselves and our careers.
So get comfy and settle in.
This is Career Catastrophe from the Skipton Group. You've been with the group for 20 years. Tell me, how did you join the business?
So I am a Yorkshire girl, born and bred, if you can't tell by the accent already. And I joined Skipton when I was 19 years old. I was a little bit mischievous. I probably still am. And I joined fresh from working in a restaurant, and I started working as an administrator. It turned out quite quickly I'm terrible at admin, and after a few months my leader sat me down and said, "You're really bad at this. This isn't going to work." But by that point we'd realised that I'm really good at talking, so I got given the opportunity to join the call centre, and over the space of the next 6 to 12 months I became a qualified mortgage advisor. And it was the first time that I'd done any learning outside of school. I probably didn't have the best relationship with school due to the mischievousness. So I left with minimal GCSEs. So going to Skipton and being asked to study quite quickly was quite a challenge. But actually I found out that I really liked it.
And did you find that held you back, only having one GCSE? Because in the world today, there's a lot of talk about degrees, qualifications. But actually, I'm someone that didn't go to university, much to my father's despair, and went straight into the workplace. But did you find it difficult to get your first role, having just had one GCSE?
Yes, in honesty. And back in the days when I did apply, so when 2003, I think it was, a lot of places wanted a minimum of 2. And to your question, did it hold me back? I think it held me back in my mind more than it practically held me back. I've struggled a lot with, I don't personally like the term imposter syndrome, but everybody uses it and knows what it is.
I think it's more common than you think. I think that in reality, a bit of nerves is good for you.
Yep.
And for anyone that's too confident, it probably works against them.
Yeah.
They're normally the ones that are bordering on arrogant. So
yeah,
I don't mind a bit of
I've met a few of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So 20 years with the group, something must have kept you with the business. And I think that there's a lot of time for things to go well, things to go wrong. Why did you stay?
I learn quite early on that I'm intrinsically motivated. I just love learning things. And I love it when it's really messy. So in the 20 years I've been there, I've had 5 completely different careers. We won't count the admin one in that. So from mortgage advisor to subprime lender, operations manager, group risk management. Never thought I'd work in risk, but I absolutely loved it. Strategy, and then now recently to the group chief of staff. So the reason I stay is I keep threatening to leave and then they keep offering me new jobs and I love it.
So you've got to be a people person to be group chief of staff.
Absolutely.
What's the best thing about your job?
So in my previous role as the head of strategy, we would create the lovely one-pager that said, we're going to go off and we're going to do all of this amazing stuff. And Exco would say, yeah, we're absolutely going to go do that stuff. My job as group chief of staff is to hold them to account for delivering on our ambitions and purpose. And that's across the group. So to answer your question more clearly, I like to knock people's heads together when they don't do what they say they're going to.
I'm very pleased to hear it.
Thoroughly
because there are
enjoy
a lot
it.
of people that are big talkers and not very good at the doing. So that's really, really important.
Tell me a bit about you. I can see you are, I'm not going to say the word heavily pregnant, but we'll say with baby.
Thank you. I was
You're
keeping
welcome.
that under wraps. Thanks for sharing.
You're very welcome. Surprise.
Yes, I'm pregnant. And this will be my 3rd child. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how do you balance being managing director of such an amazing company, 3 children, life? Talk to me about it.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's all go. It's 100 miles an hour and that's the way I like it. I wouldn't want it any way, shape or form differently. I'm passionate about my job. So having a career was very important. I've always been ambitious. And in reality, having children along the way is one of the most amazing, probably the best thing that I've ever done, my biggest achievement. But the reality for a woman is there's never a right time. There's never a right time to have a child, because there's always a moment where you have to step away from your business, something that you might live and breathe, and essentially put the trust in the people around you. And thankfully for me, I've got a brilliant team who I know will look after my business very, very well while I'm out for a period of time. But I definitely have always thought I want to be one of those people that can show that you can have it all. I know people don't like that saying, but you know, it's tough to work full time and ultimately have children. But you know, at work, I've got a job to do, and outside of work, I'm absolutely dedicated to my children, very much a slave to them. So,
aren't we all?
Yes, absolutely.
I never thought I'd be a football driving mum, and now I'm on the sidelines. Get that ball, Sam! And my husband has to tell me to be quiet. I think that's my competitive side, and I think that's the thing we've got in common. We're both ever so slightly competitive too.
Definitely competitive. I think that's very, very important. I've got 3 brothers, so I needed to learn to run as fast as they could, and I certainly didn't want to be held back against them. So, but yeah.
And tell me a bit about that. So, tell me a bit about your background. What are your key drivers? What are your core values?
I just don't want to do things the way they've always been done, just because that's the easy route. I want to be bold. I want us to make mistakes. I want us to fail and learn from our errors. And that's been a really good approach for John D. Wood. And as a result, you know, we've had some of our best results on record in the last few years. So I think I'm very fair as an individual. I'm very supportive of people. In terms of the way I run the business, I always believe that if you look after your people, the results look after themselves. And I've worked for some brilliant bosses along the way, and I've worked for some terrible bosses along the way. And what that's taught me is who I never want to be, and absolutely what I want to learn to be. So,
I'm guessing it's a very people-centric role as well, isn't it?
well, if you don't like people, you probably shouldn't do this job, because, you know, I always say, I mean, ultimately, I'm an estate agent. That's what I do. That's what I've done for 20 years. And if you cannot get on with people, I always think when someone says, oh, you know, how do I choose my estate agent? Is it fee? Is it this? My view is you're going to be in a relationship with this person for at least the next 3 months. So if they irritate you or you find them immensely annoying, then you're probably best not to work with them. So it's about the individual.
Shouldn't work with my husband then.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So, I mean, estate agents don't have a good rep, do they? I mean, when I say to people still to this day, oh, I'm an estate agent, they go, oh, how unfortunate. You said it. See, this is the thing. But, you know, there are brilliant estate agents out there. Everybody needs a good estate agent in life. You just don't know you need them until they make a difference.
So what are you doing to change the perception?
Just delivering on really great customer service. I think that's really, really important. And equally, I think, you know, we're not people pleasers. We're here to get a job done. But ultimately, some of our clients do have really high expectations, which they definitely should have, but also some that are completely out of kilter and are never going to be delivered on. And I think a great property advisor is someone that tells you the truth, which is you may not get what you want because it's completely unrealistic, but this is the best that I can get for you. And if you put your trust in me, then I can help you to get what you want. And I think that when you've got someone who's confident enough to have those sorts of conversations, that's incredibly valuable to anyone. So
absolutely agree with what you're saying. And tell me a bit about you. So you're one of very few very senior women in the estate agency business. How's that?
Oh, I get asked this question a lot, and I feel like I should probably stop talking about it, but because it's probably very annoying. I mean, I've never thought to myself, really, oh, I'm a woman in essentially what is a man's world. But when questions have been put to me like, you know, which women were your role models? Well, there weren't any because they didn't exist. I'm not sure that many of them exist now in property. There are incredible women across industries that I find inspiring. But I think that in estate agency, it is predominantly a man's world. Perhaps that comes from a world which was very anti-flexible working. I think that's changing, and I think that's really, really important. I think, you know, estate agents tend to be male and women. Some say women make better estate agents, but, you know. I
think it's down to that emotional intelligence again.
Could be.
It absolutely is.
But I think, I mean, I feel this responsibility that I've got a voice. It would be easier to say nothing, because, keep your head down. Or I could say, guys, we really need to do a bit better here, and lead from the front. And so I think that someone once said to me, you need to be able to see someone that looks like you. So having women on the board in business means that you can see yourself there. Having women lead businesses can be an inspiration to some. I just think if you've got great leaders who have good values, that is inspiring. So in terms of career catastrophes, would you say you've had a moment in time where something's gone horribly wrong for you?
I'd say there's two. So the first one, as I mentioned, I wasn't a very good administrator. And unfortunately, we'd sadly lost somebody's passport. And so I'd written...
We or you? Just
I'd say it was the we, actually. The royal we. And I'd written... Back in those days, everything was manual. So I wrote a letter to the customer, said, I'm really sorry, we've lost your passport. And another letter came back, a little bit more angry this time. And it said something along the lines of, not only have you lost my passport, you've also got somebody incompetent writing your letters. And when I reread the letter back, I'd accidentally written, I'm really sorry for any incontinence caused. It wasn't the best moment. And then through that, though, as a company, it was really good. We decided to automate our letters. And we had a big event where we had 200 or 300 colleagues around saying, this is why we're automating our letters. These are absolutely not okay. And mine was there. And everybody who knew me in my team, which was quite a big team, was like, oh my God, Steph. My second one, which I would say was career defining. So I worked for one of the group companies at one point, Amber Home Loans. And I've always been a high performer, hence the conversation we've just had. Always liked to smash things out of the park. But I was a big character. Like, I have a personality now, but I was in your face, big. So I spent 2 years learning, listening, asking for feedback, reflecting after meetings, right? What did I want to be like in that meeting? How was I? And this was the part where I was building my emotional intelligence, right? Looking at cues. Am I talking for too long? What's my tone of voice like? And it wasn't OTT. It was just natural. Bit by bit, I started to develop where I wanted to be. And one of my most successful parts was 2 years later, I interviewed for the operations manager of the business and I got it. So they're the two that come to my head. What about you?
I find this really hard because I don't think anything's a catastrophe. It might feel like it at the time, but
it definitely did with that one.
Oh my God, everything feels like you learn from these moments, don't you? I think when I was really young, I think first job, I was 18 and or maybe it must have been second job, and I answered the phone. And this is such a minor thing, but I answered the phone to the MD of the business with the last company's name that I worked for. And when you're like, this just isn't going well for me. But I remember it just haunting me for weeks. And I think to other catastrophes that I've had along the way, gosh, I think there was one moment when I, in this business, but actually when we were under different ownership, two businesses were merging together, and I was running an estate agency and was promised a job. And when the businesses merged, my boss at the time, who I'd worked with for a long time, said, look, you're not going to be able to go and do that job because you're a woman and because it's all men and they're not going to respect you. And it sort of broke me internally for a couple of weeks because I just thought, I cannot believe this is happening. Lo and behold, I now run that business.
Congratulations.
And, but it made me fight harder because people who can be your mentor or you can learn so much from, what they think really matters, I think, when you're learning and you're growing. And I think that moment was not a good moment because I didn't lose the job because I hadn't got the job, but I've been told that's the job you're going to go and do. And to not get it sort of broke my heart, really. But it made me work 2 or 3 times as hard and had a point to prove. And those are the moments that maybe I wouldn't be sitting here now if that hadn't been the case. And more for him.
And how
he doesn't work here anymore, so I can say that.
And how did you pick yourself up? So a lot of this is about how do we impart some of our wisdom or advice. What did you do in that moment that made you resilient or gave you that grit that you talked about?
I think it is grit. So I think it's probably the way I'm built. So I think I'm one of 4 children. At the age of 10, and I do think this is to do with childhood. I lost my mum very suddenly to ovarian cancer. So she fell ill and passed away within a month. And I think I had 24 hours to learn that she was going to pass away. And so, that happened on the weekend. We went back to school on Monday, which was just the way my father chose to handle it at that point. And we just got on with it. And I think I've always thrown myself into work. So when I left school and ultimately went into work in a estate agency, if things were difficult, I would just work harder. And, if you love what you do, it's easy. But I think it is about having, in the face of adversity, really just knuckling down and focusing on what you're going to go for. And I think everything I can have tomorrow, I want today. And I'm very aware of people and how they feel. I think having experienced pain at quite a young age and quite, horrific grief, I am naturally quite caring. I'm very ambitious, but I'm very aware of what people will be going through. And so I think hopefully that makes a difference in terms of the way I run this business, which is I want to take everyone with me and I want us to achieve something amazing. And of course, there are some people that don't want to get on that journey. That's absolutely fine. But for those that are part of the team, we've built a really great culture here.
So as we get to know people during the series, we're going to ask them all about what's the best thing they've either seen or done in an interview and what advice would they give. And then later on in the series, we're going to look at some of them and pick out which ones are the best. So to start us off, what would your answer be, Polly?
Oh, it's a good one. I mean, first of all, make sure you turn up on time.
That would be
there's
a good
nothing
one.
worse. I mean, I'm very punctual. So if someone isn't 5 minutes early, I'm already twitching. But I think that what I tend to say to friends or colleagues is who might be going for an interview or whatever that may be, is to, at the end of the interview, to always say to someone, do you have any reservations about giving me the role? It's a very direct, to the point question. It's very difficult not to answer, honestly. So you may have that opportunity to overcome objection that you might not know is an objection if you don't ask the question. So that's what I would say.
Oh, I love that.
Our first guest on the podcast you can listen to right now. It's Stuart Hare, the group's chief executive.
Stuart's had a vast career, starting off at the European Space Agency, right through to his current role as Group CEO. So I'm fascinated to hear about some of his learnings along the way. And have you ever got to a job and gone, oh, I shouldn't have done this?
Have I ever done that?
You're looking guilty. So.
It can't be this. It can't be. The answer can't be your current one.
I'm thinking about this podcast. So I mostly spent my time at the European Space Agency in a darkened room taking readings for interferometers and all sorts of other things. I then had a really great time setting up a new bank based in Birmingham, sort of ripping it out of London and moving it to Birmingham, getting new colleagues, new staff.
Do you consider yourself an estate agent now?
Oh goodness, no. But I don't consider myself in any way an expert. What I am quite good in is how to set up businesses for success, how to invest in them, how to get the most out of them.
You can listen right now.
Please subscribe and follow the Career Catastrophes podcast from the Skipton Group from wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you care to leave us a review, please do so on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you.